Hello and welcome to HighCalibre TV, or source for figure model updates every Wednesday and Friday. So today on the workbench I'm just going to be doing another update on the Meyer figure in 16 scale. So here you can see the base has been wrapped up with tape and all that, and the mainly put it dried. I applied a thin layer of extra texturing with Squadron body fill and a bit of Citadel liquid green stuff, as you can see where the ground's a bit rough, and then I just textured it with the back of a knife and things like that, and then sprayed with the usual primer and a few layers of Vallejo mixes. I'll try and put the colors in the description, but it's basically just grab browns, grab, you know, some really dark greens, even a bit of blue, maybe some ochre, something like that. And don't overpower any of the base browns, but just add variation. As you can see, I tried to make it as randomized as possible. In some areas neglecting, and in others overpowering with certain colors. This of course hasn't had any pastels or washes or oils applied to it yet, but those will be coming. So far so good. So here's the next part of the build, his face obviously. It's been about a month and a half since I did any 1/16 scale face work, so I'm just going to be doing a test with you guys, and I'm going to plan on spraying the sort of the highlights down, as always, try and match up the shadow composition with the rest of his uniform, his jacket, his boots, blah blah blah, so that it doesn't look like his face is from a different planet than the rest of his body. And then I'm going to spray the shadows going up at an angle like this. And this is just sort of a test. I reckon that I'll start with the highlights, because if I have to coat highlights over top of the shadows, it's going to be, well, it probably won't coat as well, and I'll have to do too many coats. That being said, once these two stages are complete, I also plan on trying a really thin, almost translucent spray for a slightly more layered, slightly more dynamic, fleshy effect, and we'll see how that turns out, so stick around. So here he is, highlights are now complete. This is a 5-layer process. I used 5 layers on this highlight, and as you can see there's gradual gradients. Obviously what I did was I sprayed from here, and as you can see the overspray on his cap just went like that, and it cut all the highlights on his face and left the shadows underneath his chin that were already there to begin with. So those are already there, and I don't need to worry about them getting coated. What I used for colors, I outlined in a video that I did weeks and weeks ago called a PSA on flesh tones, and it's a bunch of model air colors. I did add one color to my collection since then, US Sand, and I added this to the middle 2 layers on his face. Just a few drops to, you know, sort of beef out the colors, so it wasn't just highlight colors, it was also middle moderate color as well. Obviously on the final highlights it was basically sand and British uniform, I think. What I did was, as you can see with the overspray on his cap, I took the airbrush like this and just sprayed it like that. Really, really gently though. And there you go. So far so good. And I'll be back with the shadows. So here we are. 2 layers of shadows have been applied. I'm pretty pleased with the way it's looking so far. It's a bit dramatic. It looks like there's a black hole underneath him and it's sucking the light out from below. But other than that, I'm gonna tone it down with some near translucent, sort of middle of the road flesh tones. I don't want to overpower either the extreme shadows or the extreme highlights, is basically what I'm saying. And I'm really pleased with the way the airbrush is able to achieve things that I currently at my skill level couldn't do with a standard brush. So far so good. So here he is, minus the eyes and other details like lips. I'm going to put a bit of red into his cheekbones for the cold, obviously, and some 5 o'clock shadow on his chin with just a filter. So I won't show that until the figure is complete. Obviously his officer's cap's got to get detailed as well, but I'll do that by hand. And so far I can't say enough good things about airbrushes. If you can afford it, I highly recommend it. It's one of the best investments I've made as far as modeling tools go. So I will be back with the figure when he's closer to finished. So here's the last bit for today. He's all together now. Really pleased with the way he's coming along. Obviously the cap's got to get touched up. A lot of details need to be refined. He's going to get a coat of semi-gloss, and then I'm going to start the oil rendering process, or not oil rendering, but the washes and things like that. Liking it so far. And finally, as you can see, that like messy grimness on the base, that's the ink. I've mixed 2 types of ink on there from Citadel, and I'm just, as always, looking to get a bit of randomness on there, like it's, always on a muddy track, so it's been turned up and certain puddles would have been disturbed and have leaked onto the ground and things like that. So I'm gonna, as always, apologize for not having as regular submissions up. Next week will be, I promise I will have the usual 2. I've had some personal considerations that I've had to give precedence to over the past 2 weeks, but we're striving to, keep things regular here. This figure will be done next week, and you'll get to see the finished product and my thoughts on the figure build. So far, of course, I've loved it. Alpine stuff goes together beautifully, and then it always paints up really well, so no complaints, obviously. Thanks very much for watching. If you're looking for this figure and many, many more like him, we now actually stock the complete, to a T, line of 1/16 scale Alpine stuff. We've got all the 35th stuff. The website's been tuned, and we are actually in talks with another company, and we're going to get a facelift and an upgrade on the website actually as well, because many of my American and Canadian customers have voiced concerns, well, not concerns, but there's been gripes about the way the website's worked, and it has been a bit clunky, and I know about that, and I've heard you, and I wholeheartedly agree. As a modeler and someone who buys his figures online, I completely understand where you're coming from, and just know that Alan and I take this very seriously, and we are working to make the shopping experience far more streamlined. Follow us on Facebook, Pinterest, and Twitter for daily stock updates, workbench stuff, you know the drill. Christmas is coming. We've got the big sets from Evolution. We're getting a lot of new stuff coming in regular. I know on Facebook, Mr. Harms and Mr. Manjin Kim have hinted at their Christmas releases, and boy, oh boy, are we excited here at HighCalibre Miniatures for that stuff. Stay tuned. We've got the cannons from Tommy's War that were just announced. They're in the mail. They're coming. So stay tuned for that. Thanks very much for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye.